Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. That's such a weird thing to say. Welcome to the first Monday of May, May the 4th. Oh, May the 4th be with you. It's
Oh,
yes. Okay. Well, hello. Good morning. Happy Monday. We're very glad you're with us this morning. The title of today's session is True Colors, and I was telling Randolph every time I've had to type in the name or do anything, even just see the name, I get that earworm where the song Cyndi Lauper singing in my ear.
sing it, Catherine, sing it.
The Trolls version. No, we don't want to go there. But True Colors this morning. We're very glad to have you with us. Chat in your questions, your comments, and if you're watching with us on YouTube live, Julia will chat your comments in for us so that we can catch those. And if you're watching after the fact, you can send those in via the survey feedback link on the auxiliary.uga.edu auxiliary connections link. So with no further ado, and so I don't break out in song, I'll turn it over to Randolph.
You started something, Catherine, with this may the 4th be with you. I said, may the 4th be with you. So may the 4th be with all of you, as usual. Welcome to Tia Man. He's having a great Monday today. We've got a lot of work to do today in this short period of time. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. While I set up the screen, I ask you to grab a pen and a paper if you can. If you're watching later on, still grab a pen and a paper because you will need it to go through the exercise. We've never done True Colors outside of handing people an assessment to do. So we're going to try to accomplish the assessment online with you and your pen and piece of paper. If you are, I didn't even say good morning to my auxiliary family. Good morning, auxiliary family. For that, we all are back. We do have some guests with us, I'm sure. So if you're visiting from other parts of UGA, we say welcome to you as well. All right. So grab your piece of paper. It should be a full sheet. Be very smart with how you use this because we're going to do a lot of writing today. It's all right.
You're having some connectivity issues, Randolph. Are you?
Can we see?
We can see. You're just occasionally blurbing out. It's okay.
Just let me know as soon as when you see me doing that. I usually can hear when you are telling me I'm having connectivity issues. All right. So again, I'm really excited that we have folks joining us. I'm kind of stalling so that you get your pen and paper handy. You're going to do the assessment, and we've never done the assessment like this before. So be very patient if you can. We'll take it step by step. The assessment will probably take the first 15 to 20 minutes in step, and then we'll do a quick overview of True Colors. Again, all of our sessions, because they're 1 hour sessions or less than 1 hour sessions, they are really just primer. And as we get back to campus, we'll have more opportunities to work with the units directly in doing that. Y'all, I want my good time for y'all this morning. So I'm excited to get started. The Tia Man is excited to get started. So here we go. So you may ask what True Colors is. And True Colors really is this way of looking at differences. Now, understand that we're grading on a curve here. So we won't be able to pinpoint every single person to a T. But what True Colors have done is it's taken people and put them in these little categories, putting people in categories based on some of the other presentations we have. But just from a communication, from a teamwork standpoint, there are patterns and you can see. And what True Colors has done is giving us a way of seeing individuals based on what they're predisposed to. So here today will be relative providing some communication gap to doors for more learning and relationships and active communication. As in all of these kinds of classes, there's a work application. So for auxiliaries and other folks, we really want you to learn how to work better with colleagues, learn how to understand what people are predisposed to, learn how to understand some of the way that people interpret actions and community. But I will tell you, on a personal note, you can actually use True Colors at home with your family to really understand why that room, why your daughter's room is so messy when you try, when your room is just so organized and you all keep clashing heads because he or she can never get that room organized. I'll show you some of these predispositions, and you can use that to really step into the other perspective and understand better. Let's give some start. So here's what we're going to do. Grab your sheet and your paper. We're going to do the assessment, and we'll do it step by step. So if I'm moving too fast, just go ahead and type in the chat box and say, slow down, Randolph, and Catherine will let me know because I have the chat box right now, and I'll slow down. We're going to do what's called a card sort. So in front of you, I have 4 cards. What I would like for you to do is just look at these cards. I'm going to advance a little bit. I'll come back to the cards. But if you could do on your sheet of paper at the very top, I want you to do a Q, O, and try to make that a lane, and do a G, so O for orange, a G for gold, a B for blue, and a G, R for green. So you have O, G, B, G, R. That does not spell ogre, okay? All right, so, and understand that I'm going to send you a bunch more words that you will put under, that you will score under each of those. So see those as 4 lanes. So a gold, an orange lane, a gold lane, a blue lane, and a green lane. So let me go back real quickly to that. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 30 to 40 seconds. I want you to look at these 4 pictures, right? And I want you to rank them. Rank them in the order that they are. So the picture that most looks like you, that most appeals to you, most looks like things you would do or who you are, I want you to rank that highest. So numerically, that will be a number 4. Picture that's most like you, number 4. Don't move them around, just rank them just the way they order. So number 4. So for instance, if the blue card was your number 4, just put a 4 under that B that you did, right? So 4, then we rank ourselves down. So blue is most like me. And then if green is the next, that's most like me, that will be a 3. And then if gold was that would be a 2. And then if orange was the least like me, that would be a 1. So 4 for most like you and 1 for least like you. So let's take 40 seconds and rank those cards, rank them in the order that they're in right now. And we'll look something like that.
These jokers look too much like clowns for my comfort level this morning.
I know your love for clowns, Catherine. All right. Most like you, highest number 4. Least like you, lowest number 1. You can't have more than 1 of the same number. So there should be a 1, a 2, a 4 in each of your little rankings at the bottom there of those pictures, or of those letters that you wrote. So
it's on their paper, right? Not to share them, not to chat them in.
Yeah, no, I need you to write that on your paper. We've got a few more to go. So write it on your paper because we have to do some math to tally everything up.
Gotcha.
All right. In the interest of time, We're going to move to the next one. Now you'll see I've added a line at the bottom of the earlier picture. So earlier picture looked like that. Now I added a line, and in each, and on that line, you have clusters of 3 words. So I want you to 40 to 50 seconds, look at each cluster and do the same ranking. Don't worry about what you ranked earlier. This one is just specific to the words in that line. 4, the set of words, the cluster of words that look most like you, and 1, the cluster of word that sounds least like you. 4 for most, 1 for least. Take about 30 seconds.
Randolph, how about say the words that are under each one, because they are very tiny.
That's true. And again, if you like, I have no idea what that word is, just use context clues for the other words in the box. So on the first cluster, we have active, opportunistic, and spontaneous. Active, opportunistic, and spontaneous. The second cluster, we have parental, traditional, responsible. Parental, traditional, responsible. The third cluster, we have authentic, harmonious, and compassionate. Authentic, harmonious, and compassionate. And the fourth cluster, we have versatile, inventive, and competent. Versatile, inventive, and competent. So I'll go through it. Cluster 1, active, opportunistic, spontaneous. Cluster 2, parental, traditional, responsible. Cluster 3, authentic, harmonious, compassionate. Cluster 4, versatile, inventive. Rank those in the order that's most like you, starting with 4, and least like you with 1. In my reading of the clusters, I'm actually going to take away numbers and just say cluster A, B, C, and D. That way I don't confuse folks. All right. 10 more seconds. And don't worry, if you didn't get it, on the next. All right, next slide. Next line. Again, this is the most difficult part of the presentation. Once we're done with this. All right, I see my internet is acting up a little. All right, here we go with the next line. Next line, cluster A is competitive, impactful. Competitive, impetuous, and impactful. Cluster B, practical, sensible, dependable. Cluster C, unique, empathetic, and communicative. Cluster D, curious, conceptual, knowledgeable. So cluster A again is competitive, impetuous, impactful. Cluster B, practical, sensible, dependable. Cluster C, unique, empathetic, communicative. Cluster D, curious, conceptual, knowledgeable. 30 seconds. 4 most like you, 1 least like you. Got a little timer here that I'm looking at. All right. Next one, again, if you've missed it, I've always put it up further so you can go back and look at it. Next set. And that's a total of 5 sets. So we're smack dab in the middle or a little over the middle right now. Realistic, so cluster A, realistic, open-minded, adventuresome. Cluster B, loyal, conservative, organized. Cluster C, devoted, warm, poetic. Cluster D, theoretical, seeking, and ingenious. So I read those clusters again. Cluster A, realistic, open-minded, adventuresome. Cluster B, loyal, conservative, organized. Cluster C, devoted, warm, poetic. Cluster D, theoretical, seeking, ingenious. We'll put 20 seconds on the clock. Just look at those. 4 most like you, 1 least like you. All right. So we've got the 3 rows that we've done up there. You can always go back and review them. And you put your scores in. 4th row. After this row, we'll only have 1 more row to do, and we're done. 4th row, cluster A, daring, impulsive, fun. Cluster B, concern, procedural, cooperative. Cluster C, inspirational, dramatic. Cluster D, determined, complex, composed. All right. Cluster A again is daring, impulsive, fun. Cluster B is concern, procedural, cooperative. Cluster C, tender, inspirational, dramatic. Cluster D, determined, complex, composed. All right, move on. Give you about 10 seconds. And then we have the last cluster. Again, we have all 4 of the rows that we've done up at the top of the screen. Let's add the last row. Let's tally up our assessment and all that hard work. Whew, we'll be done with that, and then we can go into what these clusters mean. All right, cluster A, exciting, courageous. Cluster B, orderly, conventional, caring. Cluster C, vivacious, affectionate, sympathetic. That's cluster C. And cluster D, philosophical, principled, rational. Exciting, courageous, and skillful for cluster A. Cluster B is orderly, conventional, and caring. Cluster C is vivacious, affectionate, and sympathetic. Cluster D, philosophical, principled, and rational. I know there are folks who would say, hey, that's not how to pronounce that word. Well, I'm from a different country. I'm American, but my pronunciation for some words are quite different from yours. That's what makes us auxiliary family. All right. I'm going to add that up there. And so this is what I want us to do. So your rows, your numbering should look something like that. I'll pause and give you about 30 seconds to just look and make sure your numbering is correct. And if you've looked and your numbering is correct, what I want you to do is start with give the picture so you can start tallying your rows vertically. So add all of the numbers and put in the total for each row, for each vertical row, including the number you give to the picture. All right. I'll give you about a minute to do that. I'm going to stop the screen share real quickly to see if I can some stuff from behind the screen and so that my internet becomes better. But again, we're tallying things vertically. So get the total for each row, including the number you give the picture. Yes. So or for most like you.
Freeze frame. Hopefully he didn't close the Zoom chat window in the closing of Windows that he was working on.
Am I frozen?
You were.
Am I back?
It says that you are screen sharing. Yes, now you're back.
All right. Are we still good, Catherine?
We are. You're good to go.
Just giving people another 30 seconds to finish up your tallies. And then once you're done with your tallies, do this for me. Start putting what the highest number is. So which color has your highest number? Start throwing that in the chats for us. Let's see. Highest color.
Color you are.
In the chats.
Randolph,
Yes, ma'am.
are you going to tell us what color you are?
Yes. Next week. No, I will before the presentation is over. So Catherine, I'm not going to move my screen just so that I don't mess things up. So as you get some colors, highest color in, let me know.
Oh, man, we should have done this as a poll.
Can we do that?
Yeah, give me a few minutes.
Julia, while Catherine's working on the poll, if possible, do we have some comments in the box?
We do. Everyone's commenting in their colors.
All right, let's hear some.
Okay, let me scroll up as they continue to. Oh, there's the poll.
There's the poll. Wow, Catherine, that was magnificent. Magnificent. You deserve Tortilla Man for that. Yes, 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 Catherine.
You essentially made me not want a tortilla ever. Just throwing that out there. If you had previously added in your color, if you could please throw it into the poll so that we can capture it, because when they start popping up and all over the place, it is super hard to keep up with. I'll have to do after the fact and come back with numbers. Oh,
so this is the high color.
Do what?
This is their highest color, Catherine. If I know I may be asking a little too much, but could we get another one for your lowest color, and we'll administer that later? This is their highest color. Blue seems to have the bulk of the responses as highest color. So 38% of the people who are responding said blue. It'll be followed by green. Interesting.
Where are all my gold people at?
Golds are 22% and oranges are 16%. This is, I'll let that poll run for a little bit.
We'll
this
do the
is
lowest
interesting.
in just a bit. Or you want it now? How soon do you want it?
Let me write down these scores real quickly just to make sure. All right, so we can pause this poll. 7, 34, 23, 16. All right, just FYI, oranges 16%, greens highest. We're talking highest color. Golds 23%, blues 34%, and greens 27%. Orange, the next one. Your least, the color with the lowest numbers.
Randolph, what does it mean if somebody has a tie?
If you have a tie, it's okay. Just pick one for now. We'll talk about each color. So we anticipate that some people have a tie. Those are the people who really struggle with how to respond to particular things. And I'll show you what those things are. All right. All right, so the lowest color poll is up there. If we can just start responding, this is excellent. The responses are coming in pretty fast.
So Shaterika has a question. What's your question, Shaterika? Throw it in there.
We'll give it 20 more seconds and then we'll close this poll. And I can take Shaterika's question.
Oh, she said she had the highest, and everything, all the other three colors were the same score.
Okay.
So she doesn't have a low one.
All right. Can she tell us what her highest is?
Yes. Blue is her highest. Everything else is.
All right. Very good. Very good. All right, let's close the poll. And if you're watching this later, it just we'll give you the poll results just so you understand where others stand, either in the unit that you work for or just auxiliary as a whole. So oranges, the lowest number here are the highest in terms of our lowest color. Oranges is 32%. Golds are 14%. Blues are 27% in terms of low numbers, lowest number, and greens are 27%. So even here we have a tie with our blues and our greens. This is interesting. All right, so let's move on. Let's dive into now, what do these mean? There we go. So I think somebody wrote on my screen. All right. So I just want you to think about these things, these concepts. What are your strengths? So list down 2 strengths real quickly. Things that you know you're good at. It can be from a work or from a personal family life. So it can be work or career or personal family. What are your strengths? 2 things.
Are we chatting these in, or are these just our comments to self?
Whoever wrote on my screen, I appreciate you taking them back. All right. Just write that for yourself. We don't have to chat those in. Write that for yourself. And then what are the things that make you happy and the things that you value? So what are your joys, as well as what are your values? Just a couple of words that come to mind when you hear joys and values. And then what are your needs? What is the thing that, I absolutely need this. I inquire to be able to work. Hey, I need to be with people. So those are the kinds of needs. Listen, I need to not be bothered. I need to work from home. I need to, whatever ends that I need, jot a few things down. Lastly, what are those things that really make you frustrated, that really stress you out? Your stressors and your frustration. All right. All right, so I'm going to move pretty fast. Again, this is just an overview. We'll work on this in detail. So we'll start with our goals. So if your highest number was a goal, and we had about 16% of our respondents say their high numbers were goal, but on the flip side, 14% of our respondents say the lowest number was goal. So let's talk about goals a little bit. So for goals, their core need and their core value or duty and responsibilities. Goals are the folks who are always prepared. They have a checklist, and that checklist has its own checklist. And they are just over the moon if they can go ahead and cross stuff off their checklist. They absolutely love to plan. They're very detail oriented. They believe in service, but they believe in organized service. So organization is important to them. Punctuality is very important to them. On the family, I usually tell people, your parents, you could tell that your parents are gold if when you look at your clock, it was 5:40, your mom or your dad was pulling into the yard at the same time, to the point where you didn't even have to look at your clock anymore. You know that they're going to come in at exactly 5:43. So very organized, they're very predictable in what they do. They're very conservative and stable. They believe in traditions. They believe there's a good way to do something and a wrong way to do something. The gray area really doesn't work for them. They believe in policies and rules and principle, and they're very comfortable in a formal environment. You can trust them. They love, 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 love tradition, particularly family tradition. So for example, if you're a gold, you're usually are the one who, by this time of the year, you're calling everybody in your family saying, and this is pre-COVID-19, you're calling everybody in your family saying, hey, what are we doing for Thanksgiving? We should have Thanksgiving at my house, right? So because Thanksgiving and gatherings are a family tradition, you want that. Let's do Thanksgiving at my house. But because you love order and things are supposed to be a certain way, come Thanksgiving and folks are at your house, within 15 minutes of them being there, you're cleaning up behind them. When they touch something back in your mind, you're like, why in the world would they touch that? And I mean, everybody's sitting having fun and you straightening up and cleaning up, and you can't wait for them to leave for Thanksgiving to be over, right? And then come March of the following year, because it's tradition, you're like, hey, we should have Thanksgiving again, and we can have it at my place. Same thing with people in the workplace. The traditional people are the ones who say, this is how we always done it. I've built some expertise around this, and so let's do it this way. So your goals, they're your order, they're your organization. Now, goals also believe in fairness and equity. So what's good for the geese, gander. So if one person gets a break for 30 minutes, then you can restrict everybody else to a 30-minute lunch. 31 minutes, so there's fairness and equity across.
Hey, freezing up again.
All right, I'll slow down and let me know when I'm good.
Slow down. You were. I think it was because you were hating on golds, but you started freezing up again.
Golds was saying that's enough. I'm not hating though. Organization and structure, what makes us who we are. And again, every single one of us, here's what I need to say. Every single one of us have all four colors. We have a primary, we have a secondary, tertiary, and that fourth word is. But all of us have all four colors within us. It's just some colors are stronger than others. So in everything that I'm describing, I am not saying that because you're gold, you're bad. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that in our workplaces and in our family, we need people who are gold, because if everybody is one of the other I would describe, we won't be able to function as efficiently and effectively as we can if all four colors are within the family or the organization. So goals feel really, really good when you provide them with structure, right? Tell the lines I want you to color in. This is how I want things to be done, and they will do it to the letter and to the T. When you're not organized and say, well, I just think we should find a way to do this. They're not the best at finding a way to do this. They're the best thing. We want to get from A to B. This is the way we're going to go there. Can you make it happen? Can you make that happen? They're because they believe in organization and structure. When you give them responsibilities, you can rest assured that a goal will complete that responsibility without question. They provide standards both for the family, for the for the workplace and for society. They're the ones who, again, are about the rules and regulations, fairness and equity, and all of those. They have a reverence for history. They really respect history and tradition. Those things are big to them. And goals are esteemed when you establish stability. Now, if you're working at a dining service station, you can tell you're working with a goal when everything is organized, when there's a set time when they do this and they do that. And if you come and you're trying to change that structure, usually there are conflicts. I know I've talked to a bunch of people. We've had professional conversations about conflicts on some of our service lines, not because people didn't like each other, but because somebody was a gold and somebody was the other color, and the organization that the gold had before, by you coming in, you messing with that organization, and it didn't quite like that. So sometimes people see goals as controlling and bossy, or too serious, or resistant to change, or judgmental. Goals don't see themselves that way. They see themselves as providing structure. They see themselves as firm and traditional. There's a tried and tested in their mind. They see themselves as being realistic rather than lacking imagination. They see themselves as dependable and not boring. They see themselves as there's a routine that I can follow and not necessarily predictable. Goals don't find themselves as being too serious. They see themselves as being more goal oriented. How do you communicate with a, how do you interact with a goal? Having long and short-term goals and clear expectations as you work with them works particularly good for them, and giving them plans on how to achieve that and how do they measure how they're get to this. Goals are about both the process and the result. So they want to make sure that they're following a specific process, but that the result is what's been targeted. If you give, and this is not just for gold, but for all colors, tangible rewards work best. So if you're telling a goal, listen, we're going to do this, and this is the reward that we get, it's really good for them. Making sure that traditions and rituals are very meaningful helps our goals out. And last but not the least, providing goals with sort of a structure, right? A hierarchy and a structure. If you need this, come here. If you need this, come here. If you need this, come here. I know in auxiliaries, we talk about the bubble organization, where we're taking away this siloed approach to going to the next step and opening it up. Functionally, we still want folks to make sure they're following those channels, but relationally and organizationally, we don't grow unless we open up those lines and allow people to communicate across the organization. Now, goals initially wouldn't be very comfortable with that because they understand the hierarchy. My point here is that, yeah, where functionally the hierarchy works organizationally, goals need to be able to understand that we need to open up those lines and use some non-traditional models. So that's for the goals. That's the first step. So now oranges. Let's talk about oranges. We had, so for goals, 23% were high. I'm sorry, I think I may have given you the wrong number. 23% were high and 14 were their lowest numbers for oranges. 16% of our respondents were oranges in terms of their high number, and 32% in terms of their low number. So from the low number perspective, orange was the highest group. Now, so here's the thing about oranges. Oranges value freedom, self-expression, and skillfulness. So an orange may see themselves as playful. An orange may see themselves as playful, energetic, charming, risk taker. They love to push their boundaries. They're open to doing things differently. They're open to being energetic. I mean, they're like the life of the party. They're great negotiators. They're quick-witted. Give them something, and they'll think very fast in how they can do things. They're a people person in the sense that they feed off the energies that people get. They're deal makers. They're very productive in non-formal environments. So if you have an orange and you're showing them all of these routes and steps, an orange mind is too free and liberated to follow those steps. They think, in a way, they think outside the box. They think, okay, fine for you, but how can I do this better? How can I do this faster? And like tangible rewards, but they thrive on competition. Somebody is orange when you're walking down the street with them and they want to race you. Let's hear first, right? Everything is a competition. Your oranges don't quite believe in the concept that everybody gets a trophy. Oranges don't like that. If everybody gets a trophy, then what was for the actual competition? The oranges also are the ones that appreciate immediate feedback. So if they're doing a good job, they want to hear that over and over and over again. How did I do? You did a good job. How did I do? You did a good job. How did I do? You did a good job. Right. So oranges are really, really esteemed when you allow them to act, give them that freedom to act on impulse. Let them to think fast, let them to come up with a million ideas. Now, in terms of the operationalization of those ideas, they're not the best color for that, but they're really an essential color for generating new ideas that other colors can work with them to make that a reality. They're esteemed with people. So some of the people who are high times right now, oranges, because they don't have that people touch. They can no longer feed off the energy that people give out. And they're great with dealing with pressure. While everybody's worrying about the process or the step, orange, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll be fine. And they act without reservation. Ones who will jump in a pool just because somebody dared them to, or if you see, ride a fly, jump off a perfectly fine plane without any emergency. So those are your oranges. Key for oranges don't quite always see the long term. They see the short term. So more short term goals that you give an orange, the better it is for them to be most effective. Focusing on the behavior and the performance rather than the result is good. An orange wants to know, I'm doing good now. I'm doing good now. I'm doing good now. Their best reward that you can give them is that freedom to think for themselves and act for themselves and and color a little bit outside the box side of the line. Challenge this, make things very competitive for them, and you get the most out of oranges. Now I want to take a step. I'm watching our time. We're good on time. I want to take a step back and just allow you to. Oranges are almost the opposite of golds, right? And so when you think about golds are actually very attractive oranges and vice versa. So you see, and saying my internet connection is a bit unstable. Catherine, tell me when I'm good again.
Oh, you good? It's hit and miss. It usually doesn't take very long to get.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. So golden oranges seem to have this love-hate relationship. About every single gold has an orange friend, and they love that, but they hate that friend. They hate that friend because they feel that friend is reckless. They feel that friend is too impulsive, right? But they love that friend because that friend is reckless and too impulsive and will do the things that they wouldn't. So they kind of live vicariously through this particular friend who are doing all these things. One of the examples that I give between golds and oranges are usually the one borrowing money from the golds, and golds are usually one who's saying, well, had you planned this properly, like I do? So an orange sees a purse and they want a purse or a shoe, and shoe and purses. Don't think I'm being feminist here. I love shoes. I haven't quite got to the purse stage yet, but I love shoes. I have a lot of shoes. So if if I'm an orange and I see a shoe, I want that shoe. Hey, you live at a time. So I go and I purchase that shoe. A gold will plan. Wow, that's a beautiful shoe. 6 months later, they come and they look at it. The price dropped just 10%. Maybe it will drop 20% in a little bit. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Or you know what? I'm going to save up until I can afford this shoe. Very two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? In the workplace, the orange has a million ideas and the gold is sitting there saying, I've seen your type before. All those ideas may not quite work because of these things. Or the gold is saying, this is the structure that we would really need to be able to accomplish that. And an orange is just having a hard time getting on board with that structure that the gold has. Let's move forward a little bit. Blues. So our blues in terms of a high number, So the majority of those of you who responded in terms of your primary color were blue. So we had 34% of folks. And in terms of your lowest number, we had a tie between blues and greens. So blues are your people. They're your people who talk about love and compassion and authenticity. So blues are the glue that hold an organization or a family together. They're very optimistic, they're peacemakers, they're your true romantic. So your blue will come to work and say, oh, you won't believe what my husband Roger did. We went to the park and he had a picnic. And sometimes the gold is sitting there like, okay, really? Y'all don't have any work to do. Right? Or the blues would come and say, oh, my cat, wow. I think that cat is a human being. The gold is like, I got 4 cats for you here. I mean, it's taking the work time to talk about it. I mean, so the blues are just, they're connected to themselves. Whereas your oranges want competition, your blues want cooperation rather than competition. Whereas your goals are about process and the oranges are about this freedom, blues are really about motivating and encouraging people. They're about mutual benefits. They're about peace and harmony and great relationships. And there rarely are people who are in the service industry a lot. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of our folks, the majority of our folks selected blue as their primary color. How do you make a blue person? How do you really get the best out of them? Relate to them on a personal level. So I'll give you some examples. A gold may come and say, hey, I want this done and I want it done by the end of the day. Thank you, and walk away. Right? 2 things. A blue will never do that. Now, there's nothing wrong with the gold asking for something in that way, because the goals just think this is the process that I need. So goals, sometimes people say, lack that emotional intelligence to really say, how is this person feeling? How's the tune of my voice? How did I lay this on their desk? All of that. The end of the spectrum is your blue. Your blues are really connected to emotional intelligence in that they look at everything about how that person's feeling, how are they responding, what am I doing, how am I doing it? So the goal may come and say, I want this done by the end of the day today. Thank you. And put it down and leave. When the blue comes to ask that, the blue will say, how are you today? How are you feeling? How was your day? And they'll have this whole conversation and say, you know what? I would really like to get this completed. You know, I mean, if you can do it by the end of the day tomorrow, that would be really, really good. But if you can really help me out and get it to me at the end of the day today, oh my God, you will be my hero, right? And they put it down or put it in the person's hand and walk away. Differences in approaches, right? I'm not saying that one approach is better than the other, but if I'm a gold and I'm asking a blue to do something, they kind of expect that personal communication. Whereas if I am a gold and you are blue or asking me to do something, I don't need you to give me the whole story about how you're feeling and all of that. How you doing today? I'm fine. What can I help you with, right? And so again, understand that these differences matter. Blues will always follow through to the end. And if you ask yourself, why would they do that? They do that for one reason. They do not want to let the team down. And they believe in the connectiveness. So the people who are really enjoying our auxiliary connections right now are people who are blues, because now they feel like, oh man, we're far away, but man, I got to meet and know and interact and have conversations with all these virtual conversations with all these other folks. All right. So keys for communicating things to your blues: always provide personal approval. We all love approvals, but the blue really goes after saying, man, that is really nice. I'm so happy you were able to do that for us. Recognize that inside of the depth of their feeling is creativity. So a goal may have an orange may have an idea. The goal will tell you the structures in which that idea may or may not come to fruition. The blue will be the person on the team that get people really excited and get people to buy in to the ideas. And like most colors, recognize what they're contributing really often. Now, people think that blues are too tenderhearted or too easily persuaded or too trusting, too soft. You know, you let people take advantage of you. No, Blues are really connected to their feelings. They're compassionate. They're romantic. They put themselves in other people's shoes. All right. We've got a few more minutes. Got about 10 minutes. Let's take 2 minutes to talk about the green, and then I have a couple of other points I want to leave you with. So your greens, and in terms of our numbers, of course, my book. So our greens were, this is interesting. In terms of our high number, so those who primary colors are greens, we had 27% of our respondents. In terms of our low numbers, those who fourth and last color were green, we have the same 27%. So greens are your folks who are intellectual. They think they're very intellectual, very competent. Not that the others aren't, but they take competence to another level. They think these cerebral processes to another level, and they see themselves as the knowledgeable group. And I always say this when I'm in person and doing this particular course, when a group of people walk in the room, but since we're doing it online, I will say this: when you all logged into this session, the greens that logged into this session already knew in their heads that they were the smartest people in the room, right? So they always ask these why questions. They're very complex. They're very philosophical. Some of them can be really perfectionists. They're visionaries. So they see long ahead. This is interesting because in auxiliaries, we talk about think bigger, right? So for the green, think bigger is like a playground. They are ready to think and think and think, and they're ready to calculate and process. They're ready to take a tortilla, and they're ready to look at all facets of it and make decisions based on that. Think about where we are today. In terms of where we are today in let's say not reopening, but getting back to campus. This is a Green's field day because a Green will sit down and say, okay, let's look at models. Let's look at what we can do. Let's do all these different projections. And they're quite excited and happy with that. They have a love-hate relationship with interpersonal relations. And along those lines, a Green may see a pair of shoes and say, wow, that's a really nice pair of shoes. Sometimes that's a genuine compliment, or sometimes they're trying to, it's kind of like the chess game. There's a few more things that they may need from you. And so giving you that compliment may lead somewhere else. So let's say the next day you wear the same shoes and the Green is in a totally different mind frame. They completely ignore that shoe. And you think, wow, they commented on the other one I wore, but I wore kind of the different color and they didn't say anything about that. It's because they approach interpersonal relationships from a different standpoint. Again, they're visionaries and they're futurists. They're calm and collected, but they come from a knowledge base. So how do you make Greens feel great? You feel great by acknowledging their competence. If you have a coworker or a family member that is a Green, I am going to give you the secret to a lasting relationship with them. And here it goes. And it's on. I can't see any of my Greens because they're gonna nod their head and say yes. Tell a Green, wow, I would have never thought about that. The Green is thinking to themselves, I know you wouldn't. Right? So if you really want to esteem a Green, acknowledge their competence, acknowledge that long vision, acknowledge the intellectual ability. So again, don't get mad at them. If you acknowledge that, that's why I like talking to you, because I would have never thought about that. You've placed them in a place where they feel very good about themselves. Greens, give them challenges that allow them to transform their work into pleasure. So a Green in this whole COVID situation is trying to say, okay, how can we figure this out? How can we put these puzzle pieces together so that it fits? So it doesn't really become work anymore. It becomes a challenge and it becomes a game. And whereas I mentioned about a box, for Greens, there is no box. It's not putting things in the box. It's not touching things outside the box. The box just does not exist for Greens. So how do you communicate with them? Give them all the information. Do not give a Green a part of the information because they want to have everything on the table in order to make the decisions that they need to make. They can complement their intelligence them tasks that requires them to build new model and to look new paradigms and to move things in a way that things weren't before. So in terms of my example, the oranges have a lot of ideas, right? Great, we need those brand new ideas. They're finite and they're limited to a specific period of time. The goals would tell us, well, good idea. Here's what we can do. Here's what we won't be able to do based on the current structure, based on the policies, based on tradition. Your blues are the ones who say, that's a great idea. I'm going to get everybody on board with this, right? I'm going to let people see the value of this. Your green is the one that's able to operationalize it. So in order for us to do this, we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Really want to take it to the next level. Let's bring in 6, 7, 8 from these different places to make it better. Those are the 4 colors. Remember, every single one of us have all 4 colors inside of us. The hue or the brightness of those colors are just different. My question for you. I'm going to give you 1 minute on this question. Now that you've kind of gotten an overview of true, what do you think based on your primary color? What do you think your strengths will be? What do you think are those weaknesses based on the colors and based on how you've heard me explain the other colors, because there's people who you work with and live with that may. What are some of the opportunities that exist for you in terms of engaging with people, friends, family, coworkers? And what are some of the threats? I'll give you 30 seconds just to jot down some things. Strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats. So you ask yourself, how do I move the needle? And again, this presentation, I'm going to unfortunately take up all of the time because to touch all of these. Jot your questions into the comment box. I'll go back and review it, and I'll respond to some of these questions via email. But if you ask yourself how to move the needle, moving the needle requires you seeing more than what you bring to the table. So for instance, if I ask you all what that is, most of you don't know. If I ask you all what this is, most of you know. It's a cashew. Well, guess what? The earlier one is a cashew as well. And if I ask you, is a cashew a fruit or a nut, we would have been talking about this.
You froze again. You got too excited about cashews. Where'd you go, Randolph? At least he didn't freeze with the tortilla over his face. So there's that. Cheryl said the video went nuts. Oh, that's a good one. If you, till he comes back, if you did have questions or, oh, it looks like you got kicked off completely. If you had questions or comments or thoughts, please chat them in, and or you can send an email to him, L.R. Carter, CARTER @uga.edu. Oh, he's back. Oh, we got to let him back in. Hang on. We're
So
all
I'm back as Latasha Carter.
Welcome back.
All right, so let me just take 1 minute to finish things up for you. 1 minute to finish up. How do you deal with the differences in these qualities? Look beyond yourself. See value in not always what you see as yourself, but others. And understand, I'll leave you with this one story. You know, I hear people saying we're in unprecedented times. true, but it's a perspective I want to leave you with. Remember the tsunamis that happened, or the wars that happened in the 90s, or the California fires that happened not too long ago, or the hurricanes and the tornadoes and those things that's happened even here. Yeah, we're in unprecedented times, but for some of us and for some folks, these times aren't different from the challenges they faced once upon a time. And so it's easy for us to be in that one perspective and say, oh no, we've never experienced something like this before. Not at the global scale, but we've had pockets of these kinds of unprecedented times for individuals. And so what changes, I don't want us to go back to living our solitary lives, making just us the focus of everything that we do. But I want you to stop and pause. People really don't understand death until they have somebody close to them die. You have no idea what somebody else in your family or somebody standing on a line or driving a bus next to you is going through every single day and the things that they have to process. The worst thing that can happen is for us to go back and be in this solitary perspective, rather taking ourselves out of the picture, pausing to consider the feelings, thoughts, values, needs of others, and making sure that we lock arms, learn from each other, contribute to the work that we do, and understand that we're better, not as individuals, but I will better as a team. Thank you so much for the time, Auxiliary family. I'll take a lot of questions from you via mail later on. We may part 2 to this later on down the road, just so that we make it an open forum and an open discussion. But thank you again for all your time, and be safe, be well, and I can't wait to see you all again. Catherine, I'm going to turn things back over to you.
Okay, you were going to tell us what color.
Oh my gosh, that I knew she had to ask that. So my primary color is green.
Yes, I did.
My primary color is green, and my secondary color is orange. Now understand, sometimes my orange will overshadow my green, and that's perfect, and that happens. But green and orange, those are my 2 colors: green primary, orange are secondary. And because my orange is secondary, that's why Tortilla Man comes out sometimes and say goodbye.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for sticking with us during technical difficulties. And we look forward to seeing you this afternoon at 2, interpersonal communication. Thanks, everybody. Have a great morning.